What's up, Team No T, and welcome back to Unwrapped, our own news. And look, I know generally I talk the politics side, or I might get on Donald Trump's ass about something that he has said or done. But today I'm going to talk about how these policies of his continue to have consequences. Sometimes what's happening in our culture is not a scandal, it is a crisis. So today we're going to dive into two very real stories that show how the systemic bias in medicine doesn't just change the lives of Black women, it actively ruins them. There's pain, there's policy, but most importantly, there is power in pushing for change. So let's unwrap it. All right, so I told you we've got two stories to talk about. We're going to start with Mercedes Wells in Indiana. Now, Mercedes was in labor. She's a pregnant woman, Black woman. She was in labor. Her contractions were getting closer. You know, the things that we get excited about when we know that this child is imminent. But anyway, she's making textbook progress in her labor. And still, when she gets to the hospital turned her away. They dismissed her, discharged her, told her that her labor was not far enough along to admit her into the hospital. So, after she and her husband left, she's in excruciating pain. You can see that she is doing the Lamaze type breathing in the SUV, and her husband is desperately trying to get her to the next hospital to see if they can be of more help to them. 8 minutes after leaving the hospital, Mercedes ended up having her baby on the side of the highway alone with her husband. No doctors, no nurses, none of that, no bed, no comfort. The sheer trauma of that moment had to be excruciating for not just her, but for her husband to see her in that position. But she delivered that baby with his assistance and they went on to the next hospital. Well, that's a happy ending for that story that the baby was born fine, that Mercedes got the care that she deserved at the next hospital. And now that she has settled in to being new mother again, she's fighting for accountability. And she absolutely should be fighting for accountability. But let's get real. It never, ever, ever should have even happened. Now, our second story does not have as happy an ending. Tierra Walker in Texas. Now, Tierra was caught in what we call like this medical maze, especially with these new policies around reproductive health that has been implemented over the past couple of years. So she has a history of preeclampsia, heart failure, kidney issues while she's carrying her children. This is not Tierra's first rodeo. She had a 14-year-old son. Then she also had recently, within the last couple of years, had stillborn twins because of the health issues that she faced during her pregnancy. So she's experiencing similar problems in this pregnancy. So she's carrying a pregnancy that doesn't seem to be viable because it is detrimental to the mother's health. Even after she told more than 90 doctors her history, she asked the questions that were necessary. They could see that she was not going to be able to successfully carry this child. She spoke to all of these doctors and she even asked the question, wouldn't it make more sense if we terminated this pregnancy. Of course, the doctors put her through the rigmarole because they are trying to follow the letter of the law, even when it puts the mother's life at risk. They were saying that basically, if there is nothing wrong with the fetus, yeah, the mother's life, we can gamble with yours. So she was stuck. And she took people to the doctor with her to make sure that, they were advocating on her behalf as well. But Texas politics literally put her health and her life at grave risk. At the end of the day, Tierra Walker passes away from complications of this pregnancy. After her passing, a doctor even said flat out that she would be alive today if she'd gotten the medically necessary care that she needed. That's not my opinion. That's not something that I think. That's something I know. It's a direct quote about a direct consequence. So we have one woman who was not taken seriously at the hospital when she arrived in full freaking labor. Then we have a second Black woman who knows her health, knows her body, and was still denied the medical care necessary to save her life. And now we have a 14-year-old boy and a husband and the rest of the family mourning the loss of a woman who would still be here if politics stayed the hell out of the medical system. But it's not all politics' fault. The medical system has had issues with Black women long before the reversal of Roe versus Wade. Now, you might say Mercedes and Tierra's experiences are wildly different. And on the surface, they are. One was denied immediate care, the other was denied essential life saving care by law. But they come from the same sickness, a system that is stacked against Black women. Sometimes that bias is subtle. It might show up as a doctor who dismisses your pain and went on and sent you home. Other times, it's bold. It shows up as restrictive laws that ignore our very lives. Either way, it's systemic bias doing the talking, and it has a devastating effect on both our bodies, our families, our communities. And as I've said, this ain't nothing new. It might be news to some people, but Black women have always been doubted, always been denied, and have been silenced in medical settings, even. My own experience to other people that I know, we are not believed when we talk about our pain. Even in the dark history of slavery and medical experimentation to the very present day, there's a pattern of not listening and not caring. Old racist stereotypes about our ability to handle pain. We have a higher pain threshold. The idea that Black women should be able to suffer more. And then there's also the brand new policies that combine to create the risk of us having an adverse experience at every step of medical care. Hospitals talk a lot about care. But when you look at the outcomes, you got to ask who is actually getting the caring and who is actually doing the caring. Because we've seen, especially in these cases, these more recent cases, how dismissive the medical system can be when we're talking about Black women. And one thing you know about me is I'm not going to just bring you tea. I'm going to bring you facts. So here is a fact that you need to know. Black women die in childbirth at rates that triple that of white women. Can we say that again? Black women die in childbirth at rates that triple that of white women. We're talking over 50 deaths per 100,000 live births. This ain't because our bodies are biologically different than white women. It's because the system is. Cardiac issues, high blood pressure, even some infections. These are all treatable conditions if you are treated. When you look at the southern states, the numbers are even higher. That is a philosophical issue. It's a philosophical problem, an ideological problem, and a policy problem all rolled into one. And that, my friends, is what we continue to need to unwrap. First, I want to give you a little bit of an update of where we are on the Mercedes Wells situation in Indiana. Franciscan Health Crown Point president, which is like literally maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes, maybe not even that far away from where I grew up. So I know that little area in Indiana very well. In a public statement, the CEO and president of that hospital watched the video, of course, received the backlash saying that it is difficult to watch and that the hospital failed to listen to Ms. Wells' concerns. He also said that they will be having cultural competency training for these types of situations. More on cultural competency training in just a few minutes. Of course, the doctor and the nurse who signed off to allow Miss Wells to leave that hospital that day have been terminated. And furthermore, there has been a bill. Representative Robin Kelly out of Illinois has introduced the Wells Act, or the Women Expansion for Learning and Labor Safety Act. So the bill is named after Mercedes Wells, who was an Illinois woman who was in labor and told to go home from Franciscan Health Crown Point in Indiana. We do have people who are working on policy to make sure that things like this don't happen again. But there still isn't great news coming from Mercedes Wells' family, because now she is again hospitalized after giving birth in her husband's truck. She's having post birth complications, including hemorrhaging, and I really sincerely hope that she gets better care than she did at Franciscan Crown Point. Now, as I was saying, the president and CEO of Franciscan Health in Crown Point has said that they are going to begin to have cultural competency training. And let's talk about that a bit, because hospitals love to brag about their cultural competency training. These are courses and seminars that are supposed to help doctors and nurses do better at learning their implicit biases. But let's be real, checking a box on an HR form is not going to change uh, people who have these deep seated biases. They're going to say what they need to say to pass their little course, and they're going to go right back to being the exact same person that they were before they took it. So until systems face real, tangible consequences for discriminatory or negligent care, all that education is just window dressing. It's just a piece of paper. It's performance, not policy. So we need real training. Yeah, we do. But we also need accountability. We need transparency. And frankly, we need leadership that looks like and understands what our reality is. Mind you, the person who is the CEO and president, I can't remember his name right now, is a black man. He is a black man. But I still believe that there are levels of diversity that would keep this from happening. And also, we need these hospitals to face real consequences for when things like this happen. Because firing a doctor and firing a nurse, yep, you hired them though. So what's the consequence to you? That is the type of change we need to see. We need to see um, funding pulled from these hospitals. We need to see these hospitals face severe consequences for when things like this happen in their facilities. And yeah, we can talk about this problem to death, but I don't like to do that. I do like to have some type of, at least an idea of what a real consequence would look like. So, real accountability from these hospitals would kind of look like medical providers and hospitals answering for their care or lack thereof and then facing fines. Yeah, hit them in their pockets. The system has to hurt financially when it hurts us physically. Then we need to enact more policies that protect us, not just paperwork that pads the system, but laws that specifically address racial disparities in maternal and women's health outcomes. So that is what I hope the Wells Act turns out to be. Let me know down in the comments if you'd like me to dig a little bit further into what the Wells Act would be pushing forth. Um, and then we need more people who can walk into the room and fight for your best outcome. We need more advocates who know the system. And we need reforms that center Black women's voices. We are the ones dying. We don't need another white lawmaker, male or female, to try to speak where the person that's doing the hurting would probably be a better person to speak about what hurts. We are the experts on our bodies. We are the experts on our experiences. So our perspective should be driving this change. We should not be sitting in the back seat or being included as an afterthought saying, there's the mother. No, our voices are important into making change. But until all of these changes come about, we hear this a lot, and I'm going to say it. It sounds cliche, but we have to be our own advocate. So let's get specific on what be your own advocate means. If you're a Black woman, especially if you're pregnant or dealing with a serious medical issue, here we have a few strategies for our survival. Number one, we need to document everything. Write down everything, dates, symptoms, what you said, what was said to you, even the attitudes that you felt. Take names. If they see you documenting everything, maybe, just maybe, they'll provide better care. Also, always bring backup. Don't go to no appointment alone if you can help it. Bring your friend, bring your partner, bring a family member. Ask the facility for a patient advocate. Let's see if they've got one of those for you. You need a second pair of eyes and ears in the room as a witness when you speak to a medical professional. Always, always, always watch for red flags. Red flags would be your pain being dismissed. I faced that red flag so much when I was a younger woman, and I didn't know how to speak for myself. So I'm telling you, Auntie Tasha is giving you permission to look at those red flags. If you feel like you're being dismissed and your pain is being dismissed and you're getting rushed out and your doctor's refusing to explain or document decisions, they're not giving you anything tangible to work with, those are all major warning signs. And don't let that be your only opinion. Get the hell out of there and get another opinion. But also make sure we've documented, make sure you've written down everything that happened in that appointment. Because if you go somewhere else and you get a real diagnosis of something, that is something that we can hold that prior emergency room or doctor's office accountable for. Also, make sure that we're asking questions and demanding answers. What are the risks? Ask that question. Can you document that specific decision in my chart? Yes, make sure you put that in my chart. Here's one they might not like. Would you give that same advice to a white woman? Even if they don't like it, ask it. Ask that question. Who else can help me right now? Is there somebody else? I would like to see the manager, right? Don't let them leave the room without you having clarity. This is your health. And unfortunately, they ain't looking out for your health. You are responsible for looking out for your health because they might not be doing it. And finally, build a support network. Connect with local advocacy organizations who are already doing the work. Share your story with your community, like I'm sharing with you now, because we don't have to be alone in the fight. I felt alone when I was going through my situations with the medical system. I don't want you to feel that way. So build yourself a network and include me in it. If I have credible information to share with you all, trust and believe I will share it. And if I don't, I will look it up for you. I will find the information. If I can find it, I will. And if not, we will try to point you in the direction of somebody who can answer your questions. Without question, Mercedes and Tierra deserved better. Full freaking stop. But maybe together we can. And I mean, we will demand better for ourselves, for our daughters, for our grandchildren, and for every Black woman who walks into a medical facility. We will. This is absolutely uh, tantamount to survival for us, but it's also about hope, because change is very slow, very frustrating. But I've seen some change from when I was going through my issues to today, and this is talking about a decade. A lot of change is happening, and that can be frustrating when it's slow, but it is possible, and it starts with us speaking out, standing up, and supporting each other. Now, if this conversation resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. This is not like a typical topic for Tasha Pierce Unwrapped, but I do this for the culture, and this is affecting the culture. And I'll be back to unwrap something next week with you, hopefully. Before I check out of here, I also want to say this. If you got to the end of this video, you're a real one. You also know that I struggle with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, and the such. And when I come on this channel and I don't show my face, it is because I want to talk, but I don't feel like pulling myself together. But I do want to connect with you. Um, I don't like some of the comments that I got on my last video. So I'm not going to be doing voiceover videos. So if I feel like shit, you won't hear from me. You will only hear from me if I can sit in front of this camera and talk to you, because I really don't. I know it's not the real people who really are down for me who are making these types of comments. But this is not me just making lazy content. This is because I am struggling. So if I have unplugged for days and weeks at a time, I'm struggling, and it's okay. I'm not going anywhere. It's okay, but I do want to connect with you sometimes, even when I'm struggling. I have another channel. It's called Culture First, Democracy Always. It is just a podcast. Don't go over there and expect to see my face. It is an audio only podcast, but it is a lot of work that I have done, and it is bringing me a lot of joy, and I'm hoping that people are enjoying it. So if you enjoyed this commentary today, why don't you go over to Culture First, Democracy Always, give me a follow, and listen to a couple of episodes. Tell me what you think. All right. That's all I got. Hopefully I shared knowledge. I did not spill tea, because y'all know I don't do tea. You deserve so much more than just tea. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.